Instead of thinking about how am I going to solve this problem, if you ask the question, who can I align with, who can I call, who can I collaborate with to solve this problem, not only does the problem get solved, but there's 50 other great benefits that happen. It's sort of that exponential growth.
What's up, everybody? It's Joe Herrera coming to you live from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. I am joined by my business partner, the one and only Taylor Prince. Today is going to be actually kind of more fun than we traditionally, not that every day isn't fun, but today's going to be, we're going to do something a little bit unique. Taylor's kind of peekabooing us from his computer screen. It's only showing like your eyeball. I don't know if you've seen that. There you go. So Taylor and I, just to give you a little bit of a somewhat brief history of us, Taylor and I became business partners in 2005. He was the first Joe Taylor Group, before it even existed, buyer's agent. I met Taylor at a church activity. He came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of getting into real estate. What would you advise?" And I said, "I would advise you come to work with me." He was a buyer's agent for probably 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And I just said, "Hey, man, why don't we just partner up and do this together?" And the Joe Taylor Group was born. Seemed like we came up with a concept like February of 05, and then you had quit your job maybe in May or something. And Joe Taylor Group kicked off like June 1st of 05. Since then, we've done, I don't know, 8,000 transactions in our career. We've had buyer's agents. The Joe Taylor Group roster of buyer's agents is probably 250 agents deep through the years. We've had a ton of buyer's agents work with us. Some have gone on to start brokerages and start their own teams. Some have been with us forever, like Scotty Horlocker came on in like 07. He's celebrating his 15-year anniversary with the Joe Taylor Group. So anyways, that's kind of us in a nutshell. Over the last couple of years, we've morphed. There's been 2 books that have really influenced us. Today, we're going to talk about one of them, which is Who Not How. But before I even get into Who Not How, the number 1 book recommendation I have for you guys is called Rocket Fuel. And Rocket Fuel, I think, really helped to shape Taylor and I's minds around the concept of if we focus on what we're absolutely passionate about as visionaries, then we can create a world where we're not competing visionaries. Like when the Joe Taylor Group was just a retail team with a singular point of profitability, which is agents on our team closing deals. To some degree, Taylor and I were both visionaries for the same company in which we really lacked integration. But as we've built our world to be something bigger, now you look at what the Joe Taylor Group world of companies, for lack of a better term, is. I run our retail branch or our retail business, which is the Joe Taylor Group in Las Vegas, Nashville, Tennessee, Colorado, 3 teams in Utah. Who am I forgetting? Oklahoma City, Southern California. So the Joe Taylor Group went from a Vegas-based real estate team to now we're in 6 or 7 different states, which is awesome. And then I work on our network side, our collaboration side. Taylor's roles and responsibilities are a little bit different. He runs our wholesale branch, which is our property acquisition and liquidation side. This year, Taylor will do how many sides? Like how many purchases?
Purchase and sell. I mean, our goal was to do 100 purchases and then, probably 80 sales. So we'll probably do total. We're right now trending right around 70 purchases and then hopefully right around 50. So 120 sides is what we're hoping for.
So he runs that. And then he also runs our ancillary services, which is our title relationship, our mortgage relationship, insurance. We're getting into solar. So we've kind of divided up our world where I've got 2 responsibilities. He's got 2 responsibilities. I spend 80% of my time on my responsibilities. I take 20% of my time and help him with his, and vice versa. He spends 80% of his time on his responsibility, and he spends 20% of his time helping me on mine. So what I thought we would do is kind of, Taylor, take a second and introduce this book. It's something that has influenced us greatly. I think it's the number 1 mistake entrepreneurs make is focusing on who, but focusing on how, but we've really in our business focused on who. So give us a Cliff's Notes version of this book and some of the principles it teaches.
All righty. Yeah. When we focus on how, I think the concept here, if I could boil this down into just a the short difference between who, not how. How is it's very linear. It's very point A to point B, and it's a one track, get to that spot. It's very defined. It's very linear. But when you talk about who, it becomes non-linear to the point where it just explodes the ability, the ideas, and the growth. And when you connect and think about, instead of thinking about how am I going to solve this problem, if you ask the question, who can I align with? Who can I call? Who can I collaborate with to solve this problem? Not only does the problem get solved, but there's 50 other great benefits that happen. It's sort of that exponential growth. When you think about an investment and you think about investing and putting in $1 and getting back $1 versus putting in $1 and getting back $50 million, because of interest and all that different stuff. But with the who, not how, I think it's just that exponential explosion of, while you collaborate and focus on the who, there's so many other side benefits that come out of it, and so many new businesses. I mean, you just went over the business, the Joe Taylor Group, what we've become. And I would say probably of all those other ancillary businesses that you mentioned, beyond just selling houses for commission, I would say probably all of that came from because of who's in our world, like the people we know that pushed us and told us that it was time and expanded our minds. And we went to one person and asked him a question on how to run a team. And by asking that question of how do we run our team, they're like, why aren't you buying houses? Why aren't you having mortgage and insurance and title? So I think that's, if I had to boil it down, it's just that linear versus non-linear growth of your business and your revenues.
So talk to me about this, at least in your theory. Theoretically, why do entrepreneurs struggle so much in the real estate space? I think real estate agents are famous for focusing on the how versus the who. Like, what do you think the struggle is? Like, why are so many people that are trying to do business? I think you and I have done quite a bit of coaching. We've received a lot of coaching. We've given coaching. And so often the question that'll be raised to us is like, hey, how do I blankety blank? How do I this? How do I that? How do I get into property acquisition? How do I get into title? How do I get into mortgage? How do I get into growing a team? And I think we've become very good at flipping that on people. But why is it? What do you think it is that programs our brains to think how versus who?
I would say honesty and leadership. And when I say honesty, I think you and I have somebody in our world that if we go to them and pitch an idea to them, they will say, that's the stupidest idea. What are you guys even thinking? And having that person, I mean, anybody watching this right now, I would just ask yourself, do you have somebody in your world right now that if you went to them and pitched them an idea, that they wouldn't just, to get you out of the office or get you off the phone, say like, yeah, that's a great idea. You'll make a lot of money. That sounds awesome. Do you have somebody in your world right now that if you went to and told them what your plans were and how you wanted to accomplish it, they would say, that is stupid. Stop, don't do it. Like, do you have somebody in your world that cares enough about you? Joe and I have found that person mainly by paying a lot of money to have a coach that does that. So to answer your question, I think honesty, having somebody in your world that can tell you, pivot, stop, that's stupid, crush it, kill it, go this direction. Right. And then I think the other thing, what you mentioned about why it's so hard in entrepreneurship to find those who's is I think leadership. Like, entrepreneurs are doers. We're very good at like working 16-hour days and just grinding to the bone and like being on vacation and never putting the phone away and just work. And I think transitioning from a doer to somebody who not only delegates, but also delegates the outcome and just turns that over to a who and lets that who become the outcome. And then ultimately the other D is design. Like, we have to be able to design where we want to go 90 days from now, 3 years from now, 5 years, 10 years, how we get to a $50 million wealth plan, and not just I want to retire and be able to pay my house payment. So I would say those two things, when I look at our world, and what really blew us up was a combination of both of those. And you and I being willing to say, we don't both have to do everything. Our teams, right. Our partnership's a little unique in that aspect, but.
Well, and I think Who Not How gave me the ability to just say, hey, Taylor, here's what I really like to do. Like, I just want to do these things. And you're like, all right, cool. Well, here's what I really like to do. I'm just going to do these things. And then you and I came to a mutual agreement, like, all right, cool. We'll just hire all the things we don't want to do. So now our world is very much, if we're passionate about something, we do it. If we're not passionate about it and it needs to get done, we hire it. And I think that that's something that real estate professionals need to understand. Like, follow your passion. This world, the real estate world, is big enough that if you can find your passion and just grind on it, you can hire everything else you don't want to do. You don't have to do the things you don't want to do, which I think is such a cool principle. Well, let's do this before we get into the who draft, because what I want to do, which could be fun, is I want to just go through a few different pieces or a few different jockey positions, if you will, and I want you and I to kind of draft. Here's who I would pick. Here's who I would pick. But before we do that, I wanted to go through something that our mentoring coach gave us, which is the hierarchy of a deal, because you and I run through this every single time somebody comes to us and says, hey, I want to talk to you guys about, opening this different business, or let me just find it really quick. Opening this different business or come up with this different idea or bring a different opportunity to you. So this business valuation tool, 10 steps to evaluate any business. So if you're a real estate agent thinking of starting a team, if you're a real estate agent thinking of starting a property acquisition team or getting in ancillary services, here's the questions you have to ask yourself. Number one, what is the upside? Think 3 years out and what's the potential annual income this business can make. So now this isn't necessarily like, oh crap, I can make 20 grand. Yay, I'm going to run with it. This is Taylor and I, everybody has to set their minimum. So in order for Taylor and I to get involved in something, the potential income of that business within 3 years on an annual basis needs to be what, Taylor?
The number we said is $500,000. And
$500,000 bucks.
Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't have to be we start and next week we're, getting a check for $500,000, but it has to have the potential after doing the other stuff you're about to go over that we could hit $500,000 within, what did we say, 3 years? Was that like by the end of 3, we wanted to be hitting $500,000?
Which so far as we evaluate all of our opportunities, there's a few times we break that rule, and we'll get into why we break it. But when a new opportunity presents itself, like we're building out our coaching platform. And so then we have to ask ourselves, like, could this coaching platform by year 3 be producing $500,000 a year in annual income? If not, then there's a few other reasons we would do it if it produces less than that. But let's talk about some of those. So number 2, what are the dangers or challenges? So this is where what are we missing? This is where you get into distraction and channel capacity and all those things. Like, what are the dangers of getting into that business? Number 3, this is really, really important. Do we have the right jockey? We will not start a business without having the person to drive it. That's not us. And so this is where the pride of the real estate entrepreneur gets involved to say, like, if someone's going to do this, it's going to be me. And you and I are actually very much opposed to that. And to where when a new opportunity comes up, it's like, okay, cool. Yes, we want to do that. Now, who's going to run it for us? Number 4.
Yeah. And one thing on that, Joe, I think as far as number 2 was, what are the dangers? What's the upside? What's the downside? What are we missing? I think 2, using that who tactic there, because I remember when we started our last brokerage, Love Local, we had a couple teams that wanted to join our brokerage, and they had one of these teams, I think, had like 20 people on the team. It would have been a massive growth for the company. It was high exposure, but the thing that they brought with them was property management. And we had never done property management. And the thought was, like, we can get these 20 agents, they're doing massive business. I think they had 100 houses under management or something. And our first impression was like, well, let's go get our property management. Let's do this. That's, it's a huge team. But we made a few calls to broker friends who had brokerages. We called and talked to Jan Hawley, the head of the division here in Las Vegas, one of the chief investigators or whatever, and found out that, like we all know, property management is a complete nightmare. You've got to be specialized. There's people that do it very well and make a ton of money at it. But I think whenever you're analyzing and looking at a new opportunity, call somebody that's already done it. And you can find out pretty quick what some of those dangers and pitfalls are.
Well, and I think to your point, looking at this list as a checklist is probably not the right way to do it. I think looking at this list as a scale, and if anybody wants this list, shoot me a text or drop a comment down below. We'll get it to you. It's a scale, right? So it's like, what is the upside? If the upside on something is $2 million, then we're going to put up with a decent amount of noise and risk associated with that. But when we looked at property management, it was like, for what? To get some transaction fees? So it was like, it wasn't worth it to us because we weren't running property management, and the upside for us was tiny. So it was like, we're not going to take on a bunch of risk and a bunch of time and a bunch of liability for virtually nothing. All right. Number 5, what are we bringing to the table? Not necessarily like what talents and skill sets do we bring, but what is asked of us, our time, our influence, our capital. If we have to choose, we prefer it to be influence and capital. Like if we're going to get involved, we want the upside to be huge. And in order for the upside to be huge, our initial buy-in probably needs to be pretty decent. Number 6, this is a huge one for us. And this is almost like 1 and 6. If you look at a scale, 1 and 6 are the two we really look at. Number 1, how much upside is it? Number 6, how loud is it? And you and I are very noise averse. We both have families that we're passionate about and that we love. And we just don't have the time. Where did that thing go? We don't have the time to have a super loud business that doesn't make us a ton of money.
Yeah. And one thing on that, Joe, I think the noise, it's interesting. If I listen to like aggro heavy metal rock, to me, that's very noisy, but to somebody else, they hear that and they just love it. And it just gives them an adrenaline and endorphin burst. And I think in business, when we look at like your definition of noise, my definition of noise, when we looked at Real Broker and the upside, we saw the upside was just massive 7-figure potential. And because of that, like, I think your world in building this, this rev stream through Real has been, for me, what I would consider maybe a little bit noisy because of calls and travel and meetings and coaching and mentoring and all the stuff you're doing. But I think for you, it is busy, but it's also fulfilling. It's satisfying. It's not busy work that makes you less productive or stressed out or depressed or whatever. So I guess where I'm going with this big ramble is noise sometimes is different for everybody. Some people love to travel or at least travel for the first year, but then they get sick of it. But I think when it comes to noise too, is figuring out what noise you'll tolerate. And going back to your other point, if you're making 7 figures, there is a louder volume that you'll turn it up a bit and put up with it. So,
well, it's like the crazy hot metrics, right? That thing that came out on YouTube, and it was this, like, guys will put up with a decent amount of crazy for a decent amount of hot. And so in business, it's a little bit the same. All right. Number 7, is there anything proprietary or special about this business? Like, what kind of moat are you building? Is it a unique enough business, or is your offering or what you bring to the table or your unique skill set unique enough to build a moat? I think about our property acquisition team, and it's not rocket science what we do, but I think the magic is our moat is our work ethic and the structure you've designed for our team. They're not saying anything, overly creative, but the amount of work they put in, no one's going to out hustle us. So the hustle is the moat. So it's not always like a proprietary software or principle that no one else is doing, but like, can you at least build a moat through work ethic and things like that? 8, 9, and 10. Do we already have the customers or product for this service? Which, as we've evaluated, that's what made title so easy to get into, mortgage so easy to get into, solar so easy to get into, is they all basically tie back to the sale of a home. Number 9, do I have to travel? So for you and I, that's the difference in noise. Like I don't mind traveling for our collaboration world, where it's not noisy to me. It actually fuels me, where for some individuals, doing stuff like that actually takes a lot out of them. And then last but not least, how passionate am I? So again, if anybody wants that business valuation tool, shoot me a text or comment below and we'll get it to you. All right, Taylor, let's do this. We've got about 11 minutes. So let's do a little bit of a who draft. I'll start with coaching and mentoring. So if you had to, in your world today, pick a coach or a mentor to run with, I have a feeling where you're going to go with this. But like looking at the landscape of the real estate field, I mean, you've got Tom Ferry and you've got Mike Ferry and you've got Buffini and you've got Cheplack and you've got all these individuals, Ben Kinney and everybody else. Who would you choose as your coach, your who in the coaching world?
Yeah, you already know the answer to this. I mean, it's the guy, he ran a 3.9 40-yard dash. He's got like a 60-inch vertical. He passed in the farm. He just crushed it for us. But Brett Tanner, we've mentioned it before. You guys have heard his name. He's actually been on here. I think he was on here a few weeks back with you. But Brett is, for me, and I think for both of us, for our company, he is the one that ultimately will say, guys, that's a really stupid idea. Or he might say, you know what, I like that idea. Why don't you tweak this, and this? And we paid probably since 2015. How much money have we paid to have Brett tell us we're stupid?
Probably 250, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. So we paid 250, and what has been the return on that 250,000?
Millions for sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's probably 10x. I don't know about 10x. Yeah. But anyways, that's so yeah, Brett would be my quarterback, whatever. He'd be my draft pick. What do you got?
All right. So for me, I've got two. I've got a virtual coach and I've got an actual coach that I love. Again, I love Brett as well, but I can't pick the same guy. So number one, I would pick, I hope real estate agents are listening to Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary is he's a thought leader. He's not specific to real estate, but there's so much that he says that I think is highly valuable. My practical choice would be Phil Jones. Phil M. Jones wrote Exactly What to Say. He's amazing. I think one of the most relevant voices in real estate right now is teaching us exactly what to say for real estate agents. The book is always on my desk. There's so many gems in here. And I think him helping me with my verbiage and the structure of my conversations would be really important, because naturally the words I use may not be the right ones. He's awesome. So Phil M. Jones would be my choice. So the good news for you guys, anybody watching this, Brett Tanner does offer his coaching, and Phil M. Jones has written books. He's got, I believe, one of the number one audio books of all time on Audible. I would certainly recommend Exactly What to Say for real estate agents. Brett Tanner, if anybody needs an introduction there, hit us up. We can always introduce you to old Bretty. All right. Taylor, team leaders, looking across the landscape of the real estate world that we have. So we collaborate with, almost 1,200 agents across North America. And we have a lot of friends from the curator world and things like that. So looking at like brokerage owner / team leader, who is somebody that you would say, man, if I had to pop up a team out of nowhere, I'd roll with this guy or this girl?
Yeah, that is that gets tough. There's so many that I want to say right now. I mean, Spring is one of our absolute draft pick, the best of the best. I love Spring. There's a ton, but I think I'm going to go a little bit, maybe a little dark horse here. I don't think it's completely outside the box, but there is a guy that was 4 years ago. I think it was about 4 years ago. His day job is he would go around and he would sit down with guys like Joe and myself and ask us to give money to the Boy Scouts of America. And today, Graham Allen, big shout out to Graham if he's watching this, but Graham is leading a team in Utah. He's jumped in head first. His first year, I think he did 50 deals, second year 60, and he's just now got a team of, I don't even know how many team members now, but I love Graham. He's a state champion wrestler. And I think because of that, work ethic and just absolutely grabbing people where they don't want to be grabbed and pinching and twisting and turning. Graham knows how to make things happen, get things done. And I love Graham's tenacity, his positive attitude, and his work ethic. So
awesome.
I'm going to take Graham.
All right, Leilani, if you could bookmark that, I'd like to get a reel put together of Taylor talking about grabbing people where they don't want to be grabbed. That'd be awesome. So, all right, for me, I'm gonna give two. Number one, probably one of my favorite people in the whole world is Amy Youngren. She runs the North Group out of Toronto, Canada. She just cares more than anybody I know. She loves her agents. She blood, sweat, and tears. I get texts from her at 11 o'clock our time at night, which is 2 a.m. her time. I just don't know anybody that cares more or outworks her. Locally, Angie Lauer is an amazing team leader. I think she really sets the vision in what she does. Last year, she closed 58 transactions and helped our team get to about 1,000 transactions, our Joe Taylor Group world. She's now running 6 or 7 satellite teams. And I lied, I'm actually going to name a third one. I've always been a big fan of Ryan Rodenbeck out of Austin, Texas. Ryan's a big friend of ours. We've known him forever. He runs a brokerage called Spyglass Realty. Very unique in the Austin market. They're always top 5 places to work in Austin, and Ryan's just a great guy. So as far as team leaders go, I definitely would head down that path. All right, 2 more. So Taylor, top agents. Let me give you 3. You've got to go into war and you've got to grab with you some agents to do production, like agents that'll actually put some deals together, very applicable because we are kind of in that wartime environment right now. Who are some of the agents across either locally or across the country that you could think of like, man, these guys, they know how to put deals together and do quite a bit of business?
Well, I think the Tri-Towers I've got to go with. It's like the three prongs of the Poseidon spear. I don't know if he had three prongs or five, but that would be like the Angie, Jake, Jaden, like the three tips of the spear. These are guys that we've worked with for years, some of them longer than others, that we've seen go from Air Force police to a forklift driver to a golf cart, like selling drinks on a golf course. We've seen them go from that to dominating top 250 in Vegas realtor. So those three are amazing. The other one that I wanted to give, I've gotten to know a little bit from this mastermind and also from my sister, but Sue Gatchell in St. George, Utah. Sue is just, I've loved seeing Sue just come alive and get to know her. I think before I knew her and met her, I thought of her one way, and she was more of just this kind of typical, just workhorse crushing the St. George, Utah market. But now that I see her, she's just caring, considerate, so appreciative, so grateful, and just works harder than anybody else I know. So Sue Gatchell out of St. George, and then the three spear tips here locally, Jake, Jaden, and Angie.
Awesome. So I've got a couple myself. Taylor kind of hit the local market. I'll go a little bit more North American. So Mel Rackham out of Salt Lake City, Utah. She works with us up there with Graham. She's amazing. Like she amazes me with what she does. She's always putting deals together. She's always working hard. She's kind. She's passionate. She's energetic. Like Mel is awesome. So Cody is another agent that I really respect, and I need to grab his last name. It's Cody. I don't even want to take a stab at it. SKZYPKOWSKI. I have no idea how to say his last name. But Cody works in Toronto, Canada. He's just a killer. Like the homes he puts together, he does a lot of property tours. He's always putting deals in. I think when other people are complaining and looking for excuses, he's always grinding. And then I've got to go with Miguel, my guy, Mike Henson in Oklahoma City. He's very tactical about his approach to doing business. He's a leader in the Oklahoma City market. He thrives on referrals. He's got a massive referral network. I heard yesterday he's got $6 million in escrow from the referral network that he's a part of with Real. So like Mike is one of those that I really respect. And obviously I could go on and on and on, but we're just about out of time. All right. Last but not least, Taylor, from an operational standpoint, I think the unsung heroes, you and I were at a conference, or no, maybe it was Gary Vaynerchuk who said integrators. So going back to Rocket Fuel talks about integrators and visionaries, and how right now there are 4 visionaries to every 1 integrator. So talk about the integrators in your world. I'll give you 2 to say, like, man, if I could roll with these 2 people from an operational standpoint, these are the 2 that I would run with, integrators in your world. Maybe let's do this. Maybe go 1 or 2 local, and then if there's any national that you can think of.
Okay. Well, yeah. So locally, I mean, we've got Whitney, who's been with us now since 2014. She's family to us. We put so much on her. We've gone from, she would write addendums and contracts as our transaction manager, to now, she's pretty much involved in every single thing we do, 5, 6, 7 different businesses, and making those happen, and updating tasks and finances and funding properties and checks and CDAs. So I think Whitney is obviously in there. As far as integrating too, I think Leilani locally, given Leilani, who has just come alive with these videos and these weekly coaching team meetups, everything that we're doing event wise, Leilani has just been a rock star on that. Going outside of that, a person who's not in the real world, but she is a huge part of our world, and somebody who I have seen integrate and do just incredible stuff, including work-life balance with her children and her husband, and just she is doing so many things that I am aspiring to get to, and that is Isabel Stonebreaker out of, I always say Prescott, Arizona, but I think over there they say Prescott. So Isabel is just when it comes to acquisitions and running a massive team and just super lean and mean, and also protecting her time so that she can do exactly what she wants to do. She is a shining star.
Awesome. So locally, I've got to give a shout out to Tanya and Adita. They are they're our transaction management team. Last year, they managed almost 1,000 transactions here locally. Absolute killers. Nationally, I've got a bunch. Sarah Minty that works with North Group out of Toronto is just probably one of the best integrators I've ever seen in my whole life. She works at such a high level and is so organized. Sarah Woodrich out of Utah, she works with Springs Group. She's phenomenal. So anyways, there's a lot of those integrators across the real estate field that you and I talk a lot about low praise, high output. And that's what the integrators of the world are. I mean, like the visionaries get all the praise. Everybody talks about Steve Jobs. Everybody talks about Walt Disney, but Roy Disney and Woz at Apple. I mean, those are the integrators. Those are the people that make things actually happen. So going back to the start. If you are a visionary, you've got to identify those integrators in your world that can help you accomplish the things that you are envisioning. If you are an integrator, keep in mind, while the visionaries may be getting the praise, there is one of you for every 4 visionaries. So then the key becomes, as an integrator, linking up with the visionaries that can help maximize your talents and abilities. There's so much money to be made in the operations side. There's so much money to be made as an integrator. You just have to be strategic about choosing the right visionary. So just as much as we talk about picking the right jockey to integrate for us, as an integrator, I think there's so much value in saying, all right, I know that I'm not necessarily setting the world on fire with vision, but man, when I get a clear-cut vision and a definition of success, I'm going to outwork everybody to make it happen. If that is your skill set, then you've got to look into the real estate space and say, who are the visionaries that I really want to align with? Who do I really want to be the captain, if you will, of your world? I mean, I just think the world of a visionary is so exciting, but the world of an integrator is so effective if they choose the right visionary to align with. So, Taylor, any last words, parting comments?
I would just add to what you've said, and just I think a lot of times we get distracted thinking I have to be the visionary, or a visionary saying I have to be the integrator. But those two things, find out what your strength is, and then going right back to that beginning on the who. If you know that you have great ideas, but you are just sucky at making them happen, don't say like, how can I be really good at making them happen? Think about who can I take these great ideas to make them happen? And vice versa. If you know that you're amazing at putting stuff together with charts and graphs and delegation and ownership, but you're not really getting all the ideas, find that visionary. So, and it doesn't have to be a partner. It just has to be, it could be a member of your board. It could be somebody in your world. It could be an advisor. It could be a coach, but there's so many ways to get there. So just think of throughout the day, throughout the week and the month, think about, instead of how can I do this, think about who can I make a call to, or a text or an email right now that'll just solve this problem for me. Who, not how.
Love it. Okay. Thanks, guys.